Hello, how are you? I'm Kerry, this is Sam, and this is What This Week. This is my second week of filling you in with what I've been reading, what I've been doing, what I've been watching. I have been really ill again, and if you're bored of hearing about it, I'm bored of living it, so I'm not going to wang on about it. But COVID has wiped out my immune system, and I've had this chest infection, I've had like a viral rash, I've had yeah, just a really unpleasant week. So I rested. I tried to rest, did the thing that, you know, you're told you're supposed to do, and I feel a little better, but definitely not 100%. It's just crap, isn't it? It's so hard. Life is lifing. I need to be well and to be getting on with things. So if anybody has a magic wand out there, hit me up. So let me tell you about what I've been reading and listening to and anything else of note from this week. In terms of my reading, I have read The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I'm reading this and my current read, which is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, for a reading vlog which I'm currently filming, which is reading BookTube's darlings essentially. So I've got these two and two other books which I'm reading for that reading vlog. They're all quite chunky books, so it may take me a little while to get through those, but yeah, really enjoyed The Secret History. See the vlog for my thoughts on that, and I'm enjoying The Night Circus. I read The Starless Sea by the same author and really didn't get into that. It completely lost me. I had no idea what was going on. Yeah, didn't have a good time reading that, so I was a bit anxious about this one, but I'm very much into The Night Circus so far. I'm very specifically 74 pages in. In terms of what I've been listening to, I've listened to and read in tandem two books, both for my book clubs. Actually, I go to two book clubs. So the first book for that was Eye for an Eye by MJ Arlidge. This book actually made me angry. The premise sounded really great. It's essentially focusing on the fact that there are a small number of criminals in the UK who have committed very violent crimes when they were underage, and eventually once they've served their sentence, so a life sentence, say that's 20 years, they may still be kind of young-ish adults when they're released. So when they're released, the probation service essentially give them a new identity and look after them and protect their identity, to make sure that people don't find out who they are, in case of any potential kind of retribution. And the premise of this book is that that information is leaked, and you know what happens. And I thought, oh great, really interesting. It can, you know, that puts people in a bit of a dilemma. If you lost a loved one to a violent crime and you got that information about who they are and where they're living and so on, now, you know, exploring that sense of dilemma about what you do with that information could be really interesting. I like the idea of perhaps exploring wider themes of social justice or vigilantism. I thought there was real potential there. None of that happened in this book. It was just an excuse to describe really violent acts. There was no nuance and no exploration of any kind of light and shade. Basically every single person who got that information wanted to enact something violent on the criminals themselves, so they all had the same reaction, and it just felt like an excuse to write about really violent stuff, both the original criminal acts and also what people did to those criminals when they found out their secret identities. It didn't explore anything deeper than that for me. It also kind of talked about perhaps the reasons that some of those people committed the crimes in the first place were because they had been abused themselves. And whilst there is a correlation between abuse and abusers, and you know there is, you know, a cyclical nature to abuse and generational trauma exists and all of that sort of thing, it's a lot more complex than how it's portrayed in this book, which was you know, these characters literally thinking, well, I was hurt, so I wanted to see what it felt like to hurt somebody else. And that's as like baseline as it got. I just thought it was lazy writing, didn't explore any of the kind of potential themes and issues that it could have done, and just felt like I say, an excuse to write about really violent stuff. So this was a no from me. I have book club for this, I think, a week on Wednesday. So if you have any advice about how to perhaps talk about a book that you've not liked so much to people who might have liked it, because essentially how this book club chooses books is that somebody says that they want to read something, and we put it on a spinner wheel and then it picks at random. So somebody said that they wanted to read this, which is fine. There's a lot of thriller readers in this particular book club. And I suspect that, you know, as with any group reading situation, some people are going to have got more out of this than I did. So if you've got any tips on how to talk diplomatically about the fact that I absolutely hated this and it made me very angry without upsetting anybody, put them in the comments below. Help a girl out. By the way, Sam isn't dead behind me, he's just sleeping upside down as is his wont. Yeah, so help me out. Or, you know, maybe your advice might be just drink your wine, Kerry, and don't say anything, which would be fine. And then my other book club book, which we're going to be discussing this Wednesday, which should be tomorrow by the time this video goes out, is The Measure by Nikki Erlick. Now, I suggested this book and put this forward. This book club, we choose our books by different people make suggestions, and then we all vote for what we'd like to read. So I'd suggested this one and the group voted as it was going to be one of our picks for this month. I think I saw Kayla on Books and Lala talk about this and thought it sounded really super. And it kind of was. The premise of this book is that one day everybody in the world wakes up and they have had a box delivered to them, and inside that box is a length of string, and that length of string depicts the length of their lives. The measure of their lives is held within the box in the form of this piece of string. And I thought the premise was so interesting and gave so many opportunities of things to explore. And you know, what does that mean for people starting relationships? What does that mean for people wanting to take out finance or mortgages? What does that mean for people recruiting to jobs? What does that mean for people running for political office and things like that? And some of that is explored in here. I'm not sure. So the premise is really cool, right? Can we agree on that? The premise is really, really cool. And this book is that premise, but it kind of didn't go any further. Like, I don't know. Maybe it gave too many answers. And I'm going to call myself out here, because if you asked me, like, Kerry, you know, do you like books to be ambiguous, or do you like them to kind of like tie everything up neatly in a bow? I would say the latter. I would say I don't like ambiguity in books. I like to know exactly what the author intended me to think and know, and I want to know exactly what happened. That's what I would say to you. Like, I have still never got over the ending of The Sopranos. Like, what? Like, what happened? I need to know. Don't be ending that series on this, like, what? If you know, you know. So if you ask me that, then I would say that this book was my type on paper. However, maybe my tastes have changed. One of the things that I didn't like about The Secret History was that it wrapped everything up really neatly at the end, and that was the only thing that I felt was a bit overly sentimental and a bit unnecessary and wasn't in keeping with the rest of this book. A book that I loved earlier this year was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. And that's essentially got no answers in it. It's all questions, and the more you read and the more information you get, it just adds more questions. It doesn't give you any answers, no answers. It's so ambiguous. And I loved that. I loved all of the thinking that that provoked. So maybe my tastes have changed since I first saw Kayla speak about this book and thought, yes, that sounds great. And she did describe it as, you know, every time she thought of a what if, the author kind of like covered it, and I was like, oh, great. But in reality, my reading experience of this just fell a little bit flat as a result, I think. So maybe that's a change in my tastes. I'll try to be a bit more alive to that and see if that's the case, or maybe it's just something finicky about these particular books. It was good. It was still a good book. I rated it 4 stars. I still had a couple of moments where I like gasped out loud and didn't see, you know, 1 or 2 things coming. It's not a twisty thing, that it's not meant to be that, but still there were a couple of things where I was like, whoa. And it did explore all the things that I said, in terms of, you know, there was somebody who was running for office, there was somebody who was a soldier, and, you know, people's lengths of strings began to impact on that. There was a wave of discrimination followed by a kind of backlash of acceptance and inclusion. Yeah, it did explore all of those things, but maybe a bit too much, that it didn't allow me enough thinking space, because every time I thought of something, I'm like, what if that she covered it, I was like, okay, move on. Excuse me. So yeah, it was still a good book. It was still a good book, but yeah, maybe something just, yeah, was a bit flat. I wanted to be made to think a little bit more, I think. Okay, so that's been my reading for the week. What else have we got? I told you what I've been filming. In terms of what I've been watching, one thing that I wanted to recommend that I've watched this week is a YouTube video by Reed Becker. She did a reading vlog all about books that were about doing nothing, which is a topic that really interests me. I'm very kind of like anti must be productive all the time. Rest isn't something that should be earned. Laziness is a social construct. It doesn't exist. So it was a really interesting vlog. She read some really interesting books, none of which I'd heard of before, and one I've added to my wish list, which is Rental Person Who Does Nothing, which sounds absolutely super. It's, well, actually, you know, go and watch her video to hear what it's about. It's really great vlog. I really enjoyed it. And the other thing that we've been watching is Presumed Innocent, which is on Apple TV, and it's a sort of thriller, sort of courtroom drama, murder mystery type situation. So articulate. Starring Jake Gyllenhaal, and he's so scary in it. Like, he starts off being this kind of like dad character, and he's a DA, and then he's accused of a murder, but he's also got this kind of like side of him that's got a temper, and he can like flip really quickly, and that's what's making him look less innocent, I guess. So yeah, brilliant acting from him. But stealing the show is Ruth Negga, who plays his wife, and she is just the most exquisite actress. Like, she actually doesn't have all that many lines, but her face and her eyes say so much. She's just incredible. I can't take my eyes off her when she's on the screen. She's brilliant. So yeah, we've been enjoying that, Presumed Innocent. We haven't finished it because not all the episodes are out yet. I think there's another 1 or 2 episodes to go, but it's enthralling. It's dark, like, it's grim, but very good TV. In terms of other things that have happened this week, oh, most exciting, hold on, the most exciting thing that's happened this week is I discovered tomato ketchup with pickle. I love pickles, so I bought this for me, but actually my partner's really liking it too, because he says it makes everything taste like a McDonald's. You heard it here first, folks. Call me a ketchup influencer if you like, but yeah, this is really good stuff. If you've seen it on the shelves and thought, ooh, not sure, I can recommend. But in more serious news, another thing that I've done this week is I've emailed my MP. She, for us, is newly elected, so the area in which I live, Monmouthshire, has always, forever and ever, been a Conservative area. David Davis has been the MP here for ever. Yes, so we've now got Catherine Fuchs, who's a Labour MP, and oh, excuse me, I've set an alarm. Yeah, so she's a Labour MP and she's the first female MP for Monmouthshire, so that's all delightful. So I've emailed her to congratulate her on unseating the Tories and on being the first female MP for our area, and also to tell her that I would really like her to petition Keir Starmer to cease arms to Israel and take stronger measures to call for immediate ceasefire in Gaza. That's something that's really important for me, and it was a single issue that swayed my vote when it came to the general election. So yeah, she's new, so I've not written to her before. Wrote to David Davis quite a lot, not that he was all that bothered. Yeah, so you know, consider this your reminder. If you've got a new MP for your area or not, do write to them. They work for us. Tell them what's important to you. If you haven't told them about what's happening in Gaza and how you feel about it, then do. It's really important. And I guess the last thing to tell you about this week is I had a job interview today. I hate job interviews. And this one was with a panel of 3 people, 2 of whom I know, 1 of whom is I know well, and they are the worst. Internal job interviews with people that you know are the absolute worst. So I survived it. I didn't massively fuck it up. I took notes in because we were sent the questions in advance. So I'd made notes and took notes in, still managed to forget to say certain points, but we move. So yeah, that's something else that's happened this week. I will find out if I have been successful in that application hopefully by the end of this week, so maybe this time next week I'll have some news on that. I don't know. That's it from me. I hope you're having a good week, and yeah, if you're still here and listening, then pop me an emoji of a pickle or a tomato for our tomato ketchup pickle fans in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Really grateful for you. Take good care.